Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Science Student Career Guide. We are very excited to have all of you here to explore the topic of career pathways in food science. Research students are the new workforce that will help visionary entrepreneurs shape the future of food, and they need insightful information in order to successfully advance to their next career move in food science, and also being a part of the way that the future of food is being shaped. Here today, you might be asking yourself if this is an event, what this is about. And I'm here to tell you that we are not an event, but we are here to offer guidance to you towards information you need to have the best path into career in food science. Maybe you are curious to know what your food science career options are, or you have asked yourself previously what career pathway might fit best to you. Maybe it is a corporation, maybe a startup, or starting something on your own, maybe having your own business. If your answer to any of these questions, if you have thought about this before, this is the perfect place for you. The ProteinX Career Guide is an invitation only, hand picked small group of the best in class students and faculty gathered here to learn about expectations of the novel food science workforce. Okay, so now please help me welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Joy, and Lavitor, our CEO, who is going to who's going to lead this interview right now. So Dr. Joy, as we said before, is the Director of New Product Development at Clara Foods, and Lavitor Matzenbacher is Chief Operating Officer at ProteinX Foundation. Dr. Joy, thank you for taking the time. Lavitor, thank you for being here today with us. So Lavitor, please take it from here.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning from Silicon Valley to everyone, wherever you are. Dr. Joy, always a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for being with us today in such an inspiring section. Today, we
Thank
hope
you.
to answer to some questions of those who are looking forward to joining innovative, purposeful initiatives in food science. So what I propose to you is that why don't we kick things off by talking about a topic of growing importance in the workplace, culture. You know, you are ahead of new product development in one of the most innovative companies here in Silicon Valley. How would you describe some of the core elements of your culture, such as values, mission, vision? I mean, we are always looking for like minded people, people who share a common vision to begin with. And then we move on to technical skills, background, and everything else. But first and foremost, culture comes as a topic that is critical to the success of any initiative. What could you share about Clara Foods with our audience?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. First, I absolutely agree that culture fit is very, very important. Culture fit, in other words, is the beliefs and the behaviors of people in the company. So, in a way, it determines what kind of goal the company can achieve and the approach is how they're going to achieve it. And also, if you look at the current game changing innovators, entrepreneurs. The culture fit also reflects the way they are seeing the world, how they identify the opportunities, challenges, and how do they respond to that. So for job seekers, also very, very important because this is a two-way street. So the company wants to make sure the employees are a good culture fit, and also for job seekers, candidates, you want to make sure the company's culture, value, mission, or all are aligned with yours. So I absolutely agree that's something important we need to keep an eye on. And in terms of the culture at Clara Foods, actually, I'm also excited to share the news that Clara today becomes the every company, as you might have seen in some social media. So Clara, or the every company, our mission is really to, like Elevator you just introduced, we are committed to accelerate the transition to animal-free proteins for food applications. So to provide healthier, greener, and cruelty-free proteins. So that's our mission. The whole Clara family is excited about our mission, and we're all committed. In terms of value, I say we have values at three different levels. First, at individual level, we really encourage curiosity and tenacity. So, and our employees are encouraged to explore. So we have like a different time and resource allocation. For example, in my team, the new product development team, you can spend this much time. So that the ratio can change depending on the priorities. So work on the goals, department goals, or something assigned to you. And you also have some time to explore your own interests, of course, related to alternative proteins. Um, so we really cherish curiosity and tenacity. So we don't give up. Give up is not an option. And so at the team level, then we encourage trust and teamwork. So that's our value at the team level. And also, I say at the bigger level or higher level, the corporate, the company level, it's the inclusivity and balance. So inclusivity means nobody's left behind. We have good transparency, everything's shared. Um, a balance means a good work-life balance. We don't want anyone to burn out. It's also, in a way, sustainability for our human resource.
Well,
So,
while I agree with every word you said, I always find it very challenging to find like-minded people, and people that are not only thinking in the way you are, but also are willing to bring something else, to add on to your culture, to enhance the work environment, to create that meaningful space where the mindset is oriented towards discovery, to thinking of something that nobody else thought about. How do you find these people? What is the process that Clara Foods implements? I mean, could you describe, just for people that are curious and intrigued with your mission and vision, for them to have an idea of the process of searching for the right person to join the team?
absolutely. So, again, these are at different levels. One is the culture fit. I believe most companies will either do it informally or formally screen the candidates for that. And then when it comes to the technical skill set, for me, particularly my team, I find the candidates with a good balance of um, the theory, science, and the practice side. So hands-on experience. That's a very important balance to me. I find those candidates very, very demanded. So when I say the science theory, that's basically what guide us through our experiment design, our practice, our lab work. We need something there to guide us through because we just cannot afford trial and error approach. Clara, as a startup, we are tight and we are nimble. That means we don't have a lot of resource to go on trial and error. I mean, if you have to run a 300 experiments a day, that's just not practical. So we definitely want somebody to be equipped with science, the knowledge, the theory part. Um, that doesn't mean we don't go to the lab and try things. So that's another balance. We want somebody to be both a good planner and somebody who is not afraid or hesitate to get their hands wet, dirty in the lab. So planning can always help uh, improve the efficiency, productivity. But too much of planning that can become a problem. So if you're always planning and then hesitate to go to the lab and try things, I see that's a sign that or a flag means because most of the learning, while you can do take the learning during the reading, but most of the learning is really obtained from the hands-on work. So when you're lab and you do something, you learn something that you would have otherwise never learned from reading. Um, and another one is, I say, technical strength, the balance of technical strength and business acumen. So, particularly my group, we kind of liaise with the commercial side and the technology side and the manufacturing side. So we want people both with the science mindset and also some business acumen. And we understand, especially for fresh graduate, that's not something that you get right away, but at least you remain open-minded, you're curious to learn. That's big potential we see.
So you used the word that I believe is very important, balance. I also like the word harmony. So where things kind of put together a compelling package, a value proposition that is complete. So sometimes people focus in one specific area, to develop like their technical skills, or too much on the other side that is more inspirational, such as culture. But in reality, we need everything. We need everything
Mhm.
in place to generate a contribution that will push plans forward. In terms of being a highly innovative company, what would you call the attention of our audience in terms of separating, not really separating, but drawing a difference between traditional companies that have been established over 50, 100 years, and highly innovative companies that are shaping the future of food. So there's a difference there. Sometimes we think that continuous improvement is innovation, but actually you're not doing something that is continuous improvement. You are doing something that is transformative, something that is highly innovative and has to be sustainable. So there are tremendous challenges in doing that. So when people arrive for an interview, or they submit a resume, or they interact, with you, what would you say that is different from going to a company that has been around for 100 years?
You said it. I mean, that's exactly the situation. This is a game-changing time, and I would call it a food revolution. We are changing the ways we develop food. Um, so I did see some of the confusion from a previous communication with some job seekers, uh, especially for food scientists, because that's what I can speak of. My team is a group of food scientists. So this food revolution, even though it is occurring in the food industry, but you see it's really driven by biotech. Um, that's why some food scientists they want to be part of it, but they don't know how they can contribute. So I think this might be a good opportunity to clear out of that some of the confusion. Um, the way I see it is yes, it's driven by biotechnology, so fermentation, cell culture, whatever you name it. However, like I said, this revolution is about food. And to me, food scientists are the gatekeepers. You could have all the fancy tools and the technology, but eventually it's going to food applications. So there's a huge role food scientists can play. It depends on your potential and your interest. If we talk about personality type or strength identification, I remember there were different ways to group that. And some people could be innovator, some people could be promoter, some could be good maintainer. So that can group you in potentially different groups. If you're innovator type, the new product development team or function, this is the team I'm leading. We really welcome and need that kind of people with that mindset because when the biotechnology people or the R&D in this kind of startup company, like you said, it's very different from traditional food industry. So the R&D in this new alternative protein space or other startup is really the biotechnology side. There's little a food scientist can do. Well, if you're interested, you want to learn, of course, that doesn't mean you cannot be exposed. However, that protein is a protein, a molecule. How do we shape it into a food ingredient ready for use by food manufacturers that goes to either food services or retail? We still need to develop in the protein into a ingredient. So we need to validate how it works. We need to identify the gap, and we need to close the gap, fill the gap by other means, either through formulation or processing. And we need to work with customers and our commercial internal stakeholders to make sure we're ready for launch, make sure the ingredient is fully validated. So this is where food scientists can come to play. Check how the protein works. in applications. If it doesn't work, how can we make it work? Um, then, if you are, say, maintainer type, we also need that kind of talent. For example, in quality assurance group, they need people to be gatekeeper on the quality. So you want to make sure everything is compliant to quality. So they need maintainer, people who likes to run some routine analysis, make sure everything is in spec. And if you're a promoter, you're a good storyteller, then something customer facing or working with investors, that's very good potential role for you. So it's definitely a lot of roles that food scientists can play. Even manufacturing, you can you like going to the plant and see how things are happening there. Um, well, back to your question, there's a huge difference between the startup, these technology-driven companies, and the traditional food companies. What I call is our R&D is actually not equivalent to the R&D in traditional companies. Our R&D is more like the upstream biotech, and their R&D in traditional food companies is more like our product development. So we develop it into food ingredient. That's the R&D in traditional food companies. Um, so I say I'm not saying one is better than the other. It just see what your interest is. If you're more interested in innovation, cutting edge innovation technology, startup is definitely very attractive.
This is so fascinating, and I have no doubts that we are living through fascinating times, and there's so much to happen still. So if I put myself in the shoes of those students that are either undergrad or getting into grad programs like their masters or PhDs, this is an amazing time to be where they are right now. What could academia do to help this scientists? And we need scientists more than ever. So what do you believe, that academia could do facing this new challenge that we have right now to innovate, to think of things that nobody else ever thought about, uh, in light of environmental issues, animal welfare, and other pressuring issues that are affecting the lives of people around the world? What do you believe that could be done on in universities and solid food science programs to help the scientists hit the ground running when they join a company like yours?
Yeah, absolutely. The academia is also very important. And if you look at this, some of the startup companies, a lot of them, the technology actually originated in universities from research. So started there, the science started there, and then it's really through technology transfer. And then the some of the university programs, they will even develop the technology part, not just the science. So it depends on the type of company. And then that technology is taken by the company in the industry, private sectors, and they will validate it and they work on scale up, because making a few milligrams is definitely different from making a ton of the product. So scale up, then usually that's by the industry. And then commercialization, working with customer marketing. So that's all done by the industry. But the technology, the science originated, a lot of them originated, not all, but a lot of them from universities. So, so that's the initial stage of the business. But even after, still, the academia plays an important role. Many companies, Clara does it too. I believe many startup companies have this ongoing academia partnership. That's a program that we really value. So we constantly seek partnership with the university research groups, and see how we can leverage, utilize each other's strength. So they are strong in research technology, and we are strong in industrialization, commercialization. And also, there are things that, yes, we might be able to do as a company. We have good scientists, technologists, yes, but how do we best spend the resource? So we have prioritization. So certain projects we would rather prefer to outsource or go through partnership with academia. So it's never disconnected, academia and the industry.
I think this is so important because academia is such an environment for growth, for innovating, for thinking of something that nobody ever thought about. You're free basically to do whatever you want, and you
Mhm.
should definitely try it. Thinking about what we should and shouldn't do, from previous interactions with scientists, anything you could share in practical terms of things that you've seen that you liked and other things that you didn't like so much. Like sometimes, people do things or they show up and behave in a way that you wish they did something different or they knew more about something. I don't know. Anything you could share with the audience in terms of their preparation for future, um, interviews or anything in their job seeking journey.
Sure. Um, so really the process, the job hunting, seeking, or interview is really for the purpose of mutual fit. So you want to see if the company, the culture fits yours, all yours, I mean, is aligned with theirs. It's like not only the company is looking for talent, you are looking for a good employer, employer is also looking for good talent. So it's two-way. And in terms of some preparational things to avoid, um, from my personal experience, I have seen. I briefly touched a little bit earlier that trial and error approach. I have heard several times from candidates who were quite kind of proud of them once uh, being very hardworking. The examples they gave is one day I had run 300 experiments. So my question is, why do you have around 300 experiments? Like, if you have some science guided, rather than just a random guess, you wouldn't need to do that. So, um, it's an example. We can't go to extreme that you should never run 300 experiments. That's not the point I'm trying to make. It's just that we appreciate this science guided approach rather than trial and error. So it depends on type of the role. I mean, for the new product development role, I do see that as a flag. I feel like you could do better planning, screening, before jumping into something like that. And also, something I have seen, the other extreme would be um, people who, it comes back to the balance of lab work and planning. People who prefer all hands-on, spend 100% time in the lab, and I would prefer that you take some time, do some thinking after the experiment, sit down, see what worked, what have not worked, and so some learning. And also the other extreme would be, yeah, I want to have a perfect 100% plan. I'm a good planner. I will not execute anything until I feel confident about my plan. That could be a potential flag as well. Another one major thing, we always ask that one question. I believe in many startup interviews would ask the same question: is how adaptable you are and how do you deal with changes? Because that's one of the main difference between well-established companies and startups. Startups are faced with changes almost every day, constant reprioritization, and even though that's not ideal, but we admit that's just at the initial stage of your startup business. That's something that's hard to avoid. So we really appreciate people who understand that and can adapt to changes and deal with that. That's that's a that's a big deal. I say to many startup and employers. Those are the things I can think of, and a lot of them are really related to MPD. There are other functional teams may have different requirements, but I cannot speak too much of them. So this is really for the MPD and food scientist type of role.
I love the way you put it in terms of like giving insights that are science oriented. Sometimes we focus on basic things like turn your camera on, smile, and something like that. But the insights, I hope everybody's listening, and I'm glad we also are going to. This is a very curated environment where we invited a few people, but we are also going to share this with our curated network. So I'm glad that you focus on like key aspects that are science oriented on top of everything else they could do to enhance their first impression, which is always important to cause. I see Anna in the screen. Do we have any questions from the audience by any chance, Anna? Or can I just keep going? Or can we
Yeah, so we have a question from the audience. And again, if you from the audience want to share any questions, again, right side of your screen. But if you want to come on stage, come on screen and talk directly, just raise your hand and we can call you on stage. So our first question is from Catherine. So she's asking, what do you think the role will be moving forward for nutrition professionals in the alternative protein space?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the type of the company and also the stage. To me, my understanding, the way I see it, is the early stage of the company in the alternative protein space. Most of that nutritional aspect of a new product comes from the partnership with either academia or some other institutes. So um, usually they would have that concept first before they go and then start up a company. So they already have some understanding, and that came from their academia partnership. But as the company develops and goes to, I don't know, a later stage, they would want to have their own. So get to certain size, I say, then they want to do their own nutritional research. Um, I know some very well established companies, of course, that they were already always had it. They have nutritional department looking at the ingredient, the nutritional aspects of it. Some hot area like a human microbiome, for example, a lot of companies are into that. And alternative protein is another thing. We're talking about the PDCAS, protein value. So if it's early stage of a company, they might outsource that. Honestly speaking, and later stage, you will see they have that demand. So I say you might want to focus on this company's not at the very beginning of the business.
That's good. Thank you for answering. So if anyone else has any questions, again, write or just raise your hand and we can call here. But for now, that was the question we had on the chat. Lav, do you have any other questions with you?
While we wait another possible question, because I do see that the time is approaching our limit, is there anything in terms of a takeaway that would you share with the audience when considering joining a very innovative company in food space? I mean, uh, sometimes people they want to align with culture, they want to prepare in terms of technical skills, but beyond that, it's a decision that is going to impact their lives, you know. So how do they prepare for that? Because sometimes when you arrive in, I've done that a few times, like because I had no experience. So I was aligned with the culture. I had the technical background necessary, but then when I arrived, it was highly demanding. It was innovative. There was a lot of pressure. In reality, I did not enjoy, although I was aligned with the culture and I had the technical skills. So spend at least 8 to 10, sometimes 12 or more hours with a coworker or in an environment. You know, what would be a takeaway message for those who prepare to do that? You know, beyond aligning in terms of culture, technical skills, when they have that when they achieve that moment where they have to make such an important choice and it's going to be part of their life, what would you um, advise them in terms of preparing for that?
Sure, that's a very good question, and I believe that the job seekers ask themselves all the time. I definitely did when I was at the beginning of my career. So I say this is a suggestion from my own experience. What you do is you list the pros and cons of big companies, well established big companies, versus startup, technology driven, innovation driven startups. So list the pros and cons and see which ones that are aligned with yours. For example, big companies, well structured, startup, less structured, but will you be bothered with lack of structure? And that lack of structure usually is temporary. As the startup learns and grows, that usually gets better. Some people like the flexibility, less structure, so they can learn different things, be exposed to different things. While some people like structure, I want to do this, I want to be an expert in this one area. So then maybe you like to have some structure and nothing to distract you, so you can focus on your role. While at a startup, you might not be able to. You might be stretched out of your role and wearing different hats, but some people might enjoy that. So it's your personality type. And another one is change. So big companies, they resist changes. Startups, like I said, changes all the time. Some people might find it too many. So then you also need to find out, oh, do I like changes? Or I no, I really don't like to deal with changes. So it's really your personality type. And uh, nimble, that's also tied to structure. So we know startups are more nimble. Decision making process is much faster, easier, while the big companies, they're careful, and they put a lot in the risk management. They tend not to take much risk. So are you a risk taker? You like fast decision making, or you like to have reviews, make sure we are managing the risk properly? um, and those are non-technical level, really is the personality. And then of course, when it comes to technical, like you really want to go deep, you want to understand things at molecular level, or you would rather focus on application. I may not know the product in and out, but I know how to use it. So that's different type of roles. So I say the best thing you could do is list as many pros and cons as possible and find out where you are, what's important to you, what's nice to have, what's must have. And also, like I said, that depends on your personality. Also depends on the stage of your life. Are you at a stage that you would like to take some risk and like to have some uncertainties? You'll find that exciting, or you're at a stage like, oh, I want to settle. I want to just no surprise, something like that. Also, you want to take into consideration. So I cannot cover all the pros and cons and the things. You can talk to family, friends, your networking, or you can even Google. Just list that out and then find the best that's suitable for you.
Google is always a good resource.
Sure, yes.
Very insightful. Thank you. I hope everybody's taking advantage of this amazing insightful interview. Anna, how are we doing with questions from the audience? Anything else by any chance?
Yeah, so we have some new questions. Let me share another one. So here, do you think the development of novel products are affected more by breakthrough in scientific areas or consumers' perspective?
This is a very interesting question. It sort of gives me the opportunity to introduce how MPD works, not just MPD in Clara Foods, MPD in general, new product development. So usually when it comes to new product development, there are two types of projects, the projects. One type of project is market driven. So usually we respond to requests from internal stakeholders from the commercial side, marketing, sales. They will come to food scientists and say, there's this market demand we identified, the customers were interested, consumers were interested. Can you look into the technical feasibility? Can we develop such a product? So then in that case is really driven by market, consumers, customers. But we as a team, we also can initiate our own project. The food scientists can initiate our own. So those will be technology driven projects. We find an exciting technology. We think we can develop an exciting product. Let's do it, do the technical feasibility study. And with some preliminary data or information or proof of concept, we'll go to the marketing, the commercial team, and saying, we have this amazing idea, concept. Can you guys look into the market fit? Do some market assessment and or consumer survey, see if there's any market at all. So those two directions. And sometimes the technology driven projects end up getting the feedback saying, well, there's no market. Then there are different ways you can go around. That one is, okay, there's no market, we are too early, let's drop it and prioritize, focus on other projects. The other one is you might ask the question, okay, there's currently no market. Can we generate the market? People, consumers don't know anything about it. Can we educate them? Take that Impossible Foods, everybody know that. I mean, I doubt they started from a market, say, oh, there's a huge market. When they started, actually, the vegetarian meat, alternative meat was still a very minor category, but they educated the consumer, they created the market, and now the plant-based food is big. Just an example, it's really a collective effort for the alternative protein space. Each company really contributed, but in a way, we are creating a market. This is something you look 10 or 20 years ago, there was no market there, but we generated it. So when it comes to market, you can either say, okay, oh, well, wait, we're not ready, or let's create a market. So there are different ways to look at it. And then that's really, that it's determined by a company strategy at a high level. What does the top management see? How do they see that? How do they strategize that?
Both ways are very intriguing and fascinating. Anna, do we have another question?
Yeah, so we have our last question now.
Okay.
Um, so, what advice would you share with talent? Oh, sorry, the question isn't here anymore, but it's asking what advice would you share with talent that how they can stand out when they are going through a selection process. Do they need to share evidence of what they worked on another thing that they need to share that made them stand out through the eyes of someone that is looking for a food scientist to hire?
Sure. I say, in terms of the technical skill set, it's not something that you can prepare during the interview. Really, it's the years of practice, experience. That's so. I'm not going to comment on that side. While you are equipped with very technical strength, skill set, and how do you want to stand out from other candidates? One thing we look at is passion. Really, you can tell this candidate is just looking for a job. He or she just needs a job, or he or she is very passionate about what we do, about the company mission. The interviewers can definitely tell. um, I say, but then yeah, that comes also to personality. Some people tend to be more talkative and some are less. However, the interviewer can still tell if you have passion or not. um, the other thing is, do you know the company? That's very, very important. I have had, I've seen candidates coming to the interview not knowing what Clara Foods does. So to me, that's a flag. And how do I find out the person doesn't know? I found that in the experience, work experience, the person actually worked on egg protein before. However, the candidate didn't highlight that experience. To me, that's something you really want to highlight, right? It's high relevance. So when I asked, then the candidate would say, "Oh yeah, I worked on that." And I said that then that's really good. It would be helpful to Clara Foods. Then the candidate asked, "Oh, you guys do egg protein as well?" So that to me is an indicator that they didn't do homework. What Clara Foods do. So one thing you really want to do homework. What the employer does. What's the business and their technology, their core technology. Understand what they do, what they sell, and then uh, don't hide your passion. Those are the things that I would highly uh, suggest and recommend. The technical side, really, like I said, that takes years of practice experience. So nothing I can really comment. But this thing, two things you can control, you can do better as a candidate.
Outstanding. Anna, that the last question, or
Yes,
do you have anything
yeah,
else?
that was our last question. But thank you, Dr. Joy. It was amazing to understand, how the food scientists are the new workforce, as we said at the beginning, and the directions that they are going right now. So thank you for taking the time for sharing insights. And now we are going to our next session with Tommaso, who is going to present how we can help food scientists and how we at ProteinX are supporting everyone.